Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast, powered by Gale. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great. What about you?
Today, Bradley Flowers, I'm proud to be here, Mobile, Alabama. A little hot in the podcast studio right now.
It's a little warm. I just kicked the AC on.
Getting a little stuffy. But that's fine.
Because of all that heat and energy that you put off when you're in here screaming.
Right.
It's carbon dioxide filling the room up.
Bradley, we may have the podcast to end all podcasts today.
All right.
The one question as I travel the world like Johnny Appleseed planting trees that I get from agents all across the country as I go to their agency offices and I go to their Big I and PIA conferences, and I talk to agents, and they'll pull me aside and they'll say, "Hey, man, listen, I got one question for you. Man, I need help with automations. Am I right? Is that not the number one question you get in the industry these days from agents?"
And the automation field is getting so noisy that there's so many players in that field that it confuses people more because they don't want to make the wrong decision if they're hiring somebody to do that for them.
Correct. And then on top of all that, to speak to what you just said, certain people that are in the automation world they do one thing really good, but they don't really do this. So you got to get the right fit for what you're needing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just a carte blanche, I can do it all. You really need to look around and see who is the best fit, who has the expertise with maybe the stuff that you're using to make sure it's a good fit. Anyway, I want to bring our all-star guest on today because she deserves the introduction that she's never gotten before. Ladies and gentlemen, she is originally from Adna, Washington, and she currently resides in Middletown, Idaho. She is married to the ruggedly handsome Derek. And her household, this, ladies and gentlemen, sounds like my house. It is a tiny zoo. 4 dogs, 3 guinea pigs, 1 cat, 1 bearded dragon. Yeah, you heard that. That was right. 1 bearded dragon. 2 horses. She was an agency owner with Farmers Insurance in Washington State from 2014 to 2019. And she was an agency owner with Farmers in Idaho from 2019 to 2024. And then today, she is the owner and founder of Accelerated Automation, located there in Idaho. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you first-time guest on the IGP, Miss Mariah Gates. How are you, Mariah?
Wow, I mean, I'm all excited now. That was definitely the introduction I've never had. Thank you.
Well,
very excited to be here.
Make sure you tell Derek that Scott said he was handsome.
Ruggedly.
I tell him that every day, so he would not be surprised.
There you go. That's what I like to hear there. Mariah, hey, let's just back up for a second, okay? We know, everybody knows, everybody that's listening to this right now has pulled their car over to a rest stop or a gas station. They've gotten their notebook out. They're about to start taking feverish notes. But before we get to that, let's go back in time. I want to hear a little bit about your transition and your kind of getting into insurance. So get in my DeLorean for a minute and go back and talk a little bit about your time at Farmers and then just kind of bring us up to today.
Yeah, so I was actually in banking, had been working in banking for about 10 years and was recruited into insurance. So like most people, right, I don't think we all grew up wanting to be an insurance agent. That's not what we're after. But I was recruited by a couple different companies. I put my resume out. The The shift at Chase is the bank I was working for at the time. They were really investing in technology, which meant reducing my team members pretty drastically. I was a bank manager there at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but we were getting a lot of automation, actually. We were getting things like cash recyclers and Kava locks and all these things to make our jobs easier. But my branch wasn't slated for that for several years. I had two little kids at home, 2 and 3 years old. My kids are 18 months apart. And I was just having to pick up the slack from the staff reduction. And it was a lot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You said you were recruited from Chase.
Yeah.
Were you recruited by a customer that walked in and started talking to you about farmers, or were you recruited by a recruiting agency?
So I was recruited by district managers at
Okay.
some captive companies. So they had seen my resume out, and Indeed, I really didn't apply for anything. And they said, we've got great track record with people from the banking industry into the insurance industry. So I took a couple of meetings, Country Financial, Allstate, Farmers. I also then started driving around to these insurance agents in my town and started asking the business owners there what it was like to be an agent. It was going to be a big shift. I started as a scratch agent, so I had no clients, and I was a bank manager at Chase, and I had 2 kids and diapers and a mortgage and car payments, and to start a business from scratch was, not something I had really planned for. So it took
Right.
us about 6 months, my husband and I, to weigh our options and make a decision on what we were going to do. And at the end of the day, I quit my job, got my license, and started a scratch agency with farmers.
Awesome. Hey, do me a favor. Not going back in time, but today, what's Derek do for a living?
Derek is our CFO.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
we'll come up to that, how that happened.
Heck yeah,
That
man.
actually
That's
happened
awesome.
in the last year.
That's awesome. Good job. I like that. Okay, so we kind of elevator speech through the farmer's time. Bring us up to today. Tell us a little bit about the transition from farmers to what you've built there as the founder and CEO, and kind of how that got started, and then talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah, so at Farmers, well, first of all, when I got into insurance, I remember saying to my husband, I can't believe this industry is still existing, because I came from Chase, and Chase is like the innovator in technology and efficiency in the banking industry. They are a world leader in that area. And coming into a place where I would say, I'd ask a simple question like, oh, one of our clients needs to add an SR22. How do I do that? Where is the guide? Where is the SOP? Where is the material on how I do that? Well, open up a chat and they'll walk you through it. And I'm like, whoa, wait. So every time I have a question about how to do something in the system, because I was new, I have to talk to somebody. There's not a guide or a manual or like here's how you do it.
Video or something.
Yeah, nope, didn't exist. And I was like, how did you guys get this big without anybody knowing how to do stuff and it not being documented? Now, what they told me is, we have this for our back-end team, like our team at Farmers, but they don't give it to agents. And I'm like,
Right.
that's a little backwards. I feel like you would want the agents to do it the right way. So there was just a lot of guessing in the beginning, and a lot of wasted time on trying to figure out how the heck am I supposed to do this stuff, just for small things. So I immediately started creating my own training library of information. I was able to stumble upon screen recording pretty early on, actually, and started screen recording, things of how I would do them and put them into just like a video library. It was a very simple Google document in the beginning. And I would just give the video a description and people would search for it as I hired staff and stuff.
Sure.
So I was a scratch agent. There was an agent 2 towns away from me who got their contract terminated. So don't commingle funds from your clients to your own accounts, because that will get you terminated anywhere.
Correct.
So I took over that agency, cleaned that agency up, staffed it up. We won some trips and awards with that. My husband and I found that Washington State, which is where we're from, wasn't a good fit for us. We didn't really want to raise our family there. So he had been hunting here in Idaho for years prior to that and really wanted to move here. He's an avid hunter. Pretty much every time I go to a conference or talk to an agent, they're always asking me about if my husband will take them on a guided hunt, if he could get him a deer or an elk, all this stuff. And
I was going to say Idaho would be elk hunting majority, right?
Both. Yeah, we definitely have both, and there's
Okay.
even moose here.
Okay.
So there's a lot of great hunting here. So anyways, we ended up moving. I had called a district manager in the area. We sold our Washington agency, moved here. A district manager here had an agency who was struggling, had lost 50,000 in premium in a small agency over the last several months, and they were trying to get him to move out. So I was able to take over that agency, kind of same thing, cleaned it up, staffed it up, started winning some trips again. And in that agency is where, through a marketing group I had joined, I actually heard about Agency Zoom. And so again, at this point, everything I did in my agency for operations was in a Google document, in my Google Drive, on a Google Sheet for all of our leads, our X dates, our renewals, if it was outside of our farmer's book of business. I don't know if you know this, but with farmers insurance, you are a captive agent and it's a first right of refusal contract. So if they say no, you can write outside. So they're kind of a hybrid between an independent and a captive.
Right.
Pretty unique. So we had a lot of outside business. I still had to deal with quoting multiple carriers and using MGAs and premium finance and all those different things. So I was doing that at that point. I stumbled upon Agency Zoom. I did a demo, and all I could say was, this is what I've been missing. Something easy, where it was organized. I could control the process that I wanted my team to go through and lay it out for them, very simple, and track to see if it was done. And that was the start of accelerated automation, because I just got obsessed. I stopped talking to clients. I told my team, I will not answer billing questions. I will not run quotes. I am not doing policy reviews. It is all you.
Can I interrupt you, please? Let me tell you what you were. You were the 9-year-old that one day slid the Fortnite DVD into your Xbox, and you're
in the
like,
candy store.
The world just faded away, didn't it?
Yeah, I didn't care, because I knew that this was the future of my agency, and this is how I was gonna get out of the working, 7 days a week, doing everything myself. I had trained my staff. I had put expectations in place, monitoring those expectations, holding them accountable, knowing what the hell was going on in my agency.
Right.
It's very, very difficult prior to that.
So
I got obsessed.
Well, an Agency Zoom is one of those tools. Like I've seen it over and over and over, and agents will go out on this journey to try and find the perfect CRM or build the perfect CRM, and they all end up back at Agency Zoom. It was kind of the same thing with us and our website vendor. Like, we didn't go with Advisor Evolved initially. We tried to build it on our own, and we went to a couple, and then we end up back there. And it's like, and it's one of those tools that, there's some things here or there they could add that would make it a little better. Forms, they could add forms. If any of you guys are listening, but there's things they could add. But for the most part, like, it is the most complete insurance CRM, and it was built by former agents. And for a long time, even after the Vertifor acquisition, they really listened to their customers.
Yeah.
So Mariah, I've got to ask a question that every agent, I'm channeling this through every agent in America right now that uses Agency Zoom, which, by the way, there are a lot of independent insurance agents that use Agency Zoom.
6,500 agencies on that platform.
Okay. What is the biggest mistake of all the agents that you work with from a consulting automation standpoint? The first meeting that you guys have, and I'm sure at some point you're like, all right, let's do the big unveil, and you show me your Agency Zoom, to get a flavor for what we're looking at here, right? I mean, at some point you got to look at what they got, what they're working with.
Depends on the agency, for sure, whether or not we really dive into their system. But I can say that the biggest mistake that they make is underestimating the lift that it takes to implement a CRM into any business. It doesn't matter if it's an insurance agency, you could be selling, shoes online. It's the same thing. A CRM is a very powerful tool. It can make your life so easy, but you are going to spend hundreds of hours getting it to make it very easy. So it's really just underestimating it. The other issue I see that really shoots people in the foot is they'll roll it out very half put together, if
Mm-hmm.
even half, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Roll it out to their team will get frustrated, and then you have an adoption issue.
Yeah.
People don't want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a video on my YouTube page about adoption of software in general, not even just CRMs, but in today's age, that is a lot of what we're doing, right? Of course, AI is a big topic right now. We're rolling out new tools to make our team more efficient. And if you roll it out too soon, or you don't go kind of through the proper steps, you're going to be met with either, bad adoption, or you're going to have a lot of pushback. Change can be hard for some people, not everybody, but you want to be thoughtful and understand that this is going to take some time if you want to do it yourself. Of course, if you choose to hire somebody out, they can drastically impact that implementation timeline and help you make the right choices. But if you want to do it alone, just make sure you have the time to dedicate to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Well, and
easy.
one thing too, it's like there's so many agents, regardless of the tool, it's tool agnostic, that are not using that tool to its fullest capabilities. And one thing that we try to do at our agency is we try to, and Agency Zoom allows us to do this, and this is not an Agency Zoom commercial, by the way, is whatever our process is for a specific task, right? I want that process to live in physical form inside the CRM, okay? And the reason why, I'll give you an example. So my dad was an electrical contractor. I grew up working with him. I was the low man on the totem pole. And he, let's say we would go to somebody's house and their light's not working, right? Okay, let's
Bradley,
check.
get in the attic.
Yeah, exactly. Let's check the bulb. Okay, the bulb's good. Let's check the breaker. Okay, the breaker's good. Okay, it's the switch, right? That process of elimination to find out what went wrong. And that's the same way that I solve problems in the business. I'll give you an example. A while back, we have a team of VAs that call mortgage companies for payments. Okay. We had a VA that was calling a title company for payment on a piece of new business. Well, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to call the title company's going to send the check. Like, that's one area you don't have to call. And I think a lot of agencies would say, hey, Miss VA, don't do like reprimand that person, right? This is a title company, you don't do that. But because our process was in physical form, structured out in Agency Zoom, we were able to track back and see, oh, the producer actually tagged this incorrectly when they wrote it as a renewal, not new business. So when you have these processes drawn out and everything has steps in Agency Zoom, you can accurately see where the balls are being dropped. It's not everybody winging it and doing their own thing, and it doesn't live just in your head. It actually lives on paper as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's why, like I said, when I had all these written procedures and expectations and processes, but when it's not easy to follow, it's just human nature to find your own process, to find a way that works for you, that makes sense in your head. And most staff members don't do this like on purpose. They're not trying to say, well, I'm not going to use your system. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. Most of the time, what we hear is that there is no consistent process. Nobody has been trained on this is how we handle, payments for escrow.
Right.
One process for renewals, one process for new business. That's not usually done. They get some time to shadow. Here's the system. Make sure we, collect payments, try to get people from not canceling. And this is how we write policies. But, what happens after a policy is written? What is the renewal process? It's very, very common that this doesn't exist in a small business. And I keep saying small business because I don't want insurance agents to think that anybody's picking on them. It is a small business issue. It's kind of a tangent, but I get my makeup done at this local place. She makes custom makeup. I really am big into like no chemicals, no cruelty for things like that. And so it's all great stuff. All of her clients, most of her clients are business owners, women. And she has services for COOs and CEOs and all this stuff. And when I go in there and there's other people there and she'll say, oh, this is Mariah, this is what she does. Every single business owner I talk to has this problem. They don't have procedures, processes, training material. They don't have an operational procedure that is visual that you can check on. So this is pretty standard in small business. I came from big corporate America, right? I was a waitress and then I worked in banking, Wells Fargo and Chase. Everything was documented. Everything had a process, a procedure. We would get bank audits that would last 3 days. And if I didn't pass those to a certain standard, I could lose my job. Processes and procedures were beat into my head when I was in the
Mm-hmm.
banking industry. And when I came into insurance, it was crazy to me that it wasn't really the same thing.
Yeah. I'll transition there. You said something earlier, and I told Scott I wanted to talk about this. So you said you got to Farmers, and you were like shocked at how behind the industry is. Okay. And I,
Oh, yes.
and I want to speak about insurance technology a little bit. Now, we have made outrageous strides in the last few years. You know, we started Portal in 2019. We are light years ahead of where we were then, and I can only imagine before that, right? You know, Portal day one was light years ahead technology-wise from the company I came from, but we still have a long way to go. And so I want to get your thoughts on this, Mariah. I want to get Scott's thoughts too. So my wife and I just bought an Airbnb. Okay, it's a beach rental. So we're gonna, you know, it's gonna be a second home, and we're gonna rent it out. We're not using it.
Nice.
And I love technology. I love like figuring other industries out. And one of the best, you know, there's a book I've talked about a million times on the podcast called Better and Faster. And what it talks about is if you're in an industry that's not like the leader in technology or trends, spend some time in another industry and you can spot things before they make their way into your industry. Insurance is the perfect industry to do that because we are nowhere near the bleeding edge of the technology sword. We're down by the handle, right? And so with this Airbnb, you know, we had the option of hiring a property manager, okay? And property managers take 18 to 20%, okay? Well, the way we've structured this Airbnb, like we're hoping to break even. Like we're basically hoping to get the house for free, right? Well, I can't give up 20% to a property manager, right? Unless they can give me an extra 20% in deals and renters. And it's a beach town, like it's very popular most of the year. So I told my wife, I was like, before we hire this property manager, I think I'm going to try to do it myself first, and then I can fall back on the property manager. By the way, exact same thing I tell people when they're starting an agency and they ask me about an aggregator. I'm like, hey, I would try to do it on my own first and then fall back on the aggregator. Don't sell your soul and then regret it later, right? So I've been diving into technologies to help me manage this Airbnb, okay? So I use a program called Logify. Think of that as like the agency management system or agency Zoom, right? So that's where everything lives, okay? It integrates seamlessly with Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Google Vacation Rentals. They even create your own direct booking website where people can book direct. Okay, so seamless integration, API key, one time, done. Okay, I'm using a program. So the smart lock that we got on the door, the deadbolt, okay, the smart lock integrates with the CRM. It knows when I have a renter moving in. The day that they're moving in, an hour before they move in, it auto-generates a random 4-digit door code, texts it to them on my behalf, and then deactivates it the day they move out. The cleaning company we're using uses a cleaning scheduling website that auto-integrates. It knows when somebody's moving in. It schedules a cleaning a couple of hours before. It knows when they move out. It schedules a cleaning when they move out. One of my biggest questions, it being in a beach town and the prices are kind of volatile, is I don't want there to be a weekend where prices go up. I'm underpriced, therefore I miss out on some money, right? Well, there's a program called Price Labs that integrates with the main program that pushes it to Airbnb. It tracks your competitors' pricing, discounts at 5%, pushes it out so you're a little bit cheaper than everybody else. And there's another program that is that one thing we were concerned about is people bringing pets in. There's a program that makes a smart smoke detector that not only detects smoke if there's a fire, but it will notify you if somebody's smoking in the house, and it can tell the difference between THC, weed smoke, or cigarettes. That integrates, and when somebody smokes, it will notify them through the platform and say, hey, our technology has picked up smoking in the unit. Please don't smoke in the unit. If we catch it again, you're going to be kicked out. So what I wanted to say is like all of this stuff integrates. There's no Zapier. There's no, oh, you have to pay extra to get this integration. It's literally just API key and it's done. It does not break. It all works. And I went through all this, Mariah, and I was thinking, holy crap, like we have come a long way in insurance, but man, we have a long way to go, because that was, I think, 6 programs I routed. I would have so many zaps set up to make all those things work together. And I think a lot of the major tech AMS companies, you know, Applied, Vertafore, Now Search does a great job, Hawksoft, really need to pay attention to what's going on in these other industries and how easy some of these programs in an industry like the short-term rental industry are working together. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree with you. I think that in the last 5 years, the insurance technology boom that's happened, you know, if you talk to most companies that are technology specific for the industry, you know, they're maybe 7 years old. They're new,
Right.
right? They're not these dinosaur companies that have been around forever. And when I got into insurance and was asking like, how do you guys still use these really old systems? Why? Basically, what I was kind of told through my time was the carriers and the companies, they don't really have a lot of motivation to improve it. They are making good margins, right? The agents are stuck with it. It is what it is. It didn't seem that there was a lot of reason for them to innovate and try to improve. So obviously people from the industry took it upon themselves to do it on their own, which is then when you end up with a bunch of things that don't connect and you don't have integration.
Well,
I have seen people try to force systems together. Zapier is great. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
It can help
100%.
a lot.
It's not the
help a
end all
lot.
be all though. It's digital duct tape.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes it's necessary, but I actually choose to work with and continue to partner with companies who understand how important integration is and that they are not going to be able to provide everything that everybody wants. This idea of one solution that does everything, like you said, 6 different systems, right? To really manage your rental the way that you want. There's not going to be a company that's going to provide all 6 of those systems into one system, at
Correct.
least not in the near future, because think of the sheer cost of that. People really underestimate the amount of development, the man hours, you know, the team that you actually need to maintain systems like these and the cost of that. I mean, these programmers are not cheap. I just
Right.
didn't know these things before I kind of got into this tech space. And then when it comes to the AMS companies, you know, there's a little monopoly there. Like it's
For
not
sure.
easy to just open up an AMS and, you know, get all your downloads and your carrier access. So it's rigid and difficult, but I like companies like Vertafore who understand integration. I love Momentum, which is, you know, used to be Now Starts Momentum
Right.
now. We're going to be
By the
working with
way,
them.
I told him I wasn't calling it that. I'm still calling it Now Certs.
Just fighting it. Yeah, I honestly like Now Starts. I'm not sure the reasoning behind the name shift, but we actually have a team member now diving into that product to really become an expert for our company to be able to help the users more. And they want to be able to provide more solutions inside of their ecosystem, which is great. But there's always going to be agents that want to use different systems and have different preferences.
Right.
Integration is huge.
I think what you said is very true. Like there's never going to be a one solution. The perfect world is everything works together seamlessly. And that's why I get frustrated when new tech companies come in and immediately start like talking bad about the legacy players, because all you're doing is pigeonholing yourself and you're hurting the industry by doing that, you know? But yeah, you've got to, these tools have to be able to work together seamlessly. And then the flip side of that is like you said, you know, you may have 2 agencies that look exactly the same, but they want completely different things. And then that becomes a problem because you try to serve everybody and you end up with a behemoth problem. But I think, you know, the greatest benefit to insurance could be our greatest downfall. It is that you can be really bad at this job. You can run a really bad agency, not be great at sales, not be great at service, and make a ton of money.
I've literally been saying that. I think that the days of the business owners who are just insurance salespeople who happen to own an agency, I don't think that they're going to be the ones that are going to be around in a few years.
Right.
There's been so much money in insurance, And it is a great industry to get in as a business owner. But I have talked to people who I don't even know if I would employ them as producers. And they're good people, but their skill set from a business perspective is limited. And I was one of those people as well. Like the journey of it, I was recruited in because I was good at sales. I came from an industry where I could do that well. I remember telling my district manager before I signed my contract, I've never run a business. Now, I was a commercial business banker for Chase for a year, so I had a better understanding than most of a business and how to run one. But I told him, I go, that's what I need your help with. I never, ever got that help from that district manager. I was just asked to sell more insurance.
Yeah.
So it is troubling. And the agents that are doing really, really well and people look up to, and they want you to come to their agencies and help, or they want to come in your agency and watch, they are really good business owners. They're not salespeople.
Correct. And the thing is, the average independent agency in America is $1 million in revenue, and they probably run at 25 to 35% EBITDA. So they're making, a couple $100,000 a year, $300,000 a year. Well, a lot of people, that's Gucci. Like they're like, I'm good. I don't care if all my tech works. Right. And so if the major players, the monopolized management system companies, aren't hearing a lot of complaints from their people, why would they have any incentive to change? You know what I mean? And then you have so many agency owners that either A, have not spent time on the captive side or in a different industry. They've never done anything but independent insurance. I'd love to see some stats, what percentage of agency owners have actually worked outside of insurance. You don't really know that there's like in other industries that things work the way that I described them with the Airbnb stuff. They don't know the Chase deal. You know what I mean? Like they may think that this is the upper echelon when there really is a better way. You know what I mean?
I actually love your example of that, because think about our target client as we look at our insurance agencies and who we're trying to sell insurance to. And I'll use myself as an example, right? I'm 37 years old. I'm married. I've got a couple kids. I've got a house. I've got a rental. I've got, a trailer, whatever. I'm a great insurance client. I need life insurance, all of that stuff. I'm a millennial. But I am a millennial, part of the I want it yesterday generation, right? I don't have any patience. I want it to be fast, which is why I love working in the tech space. But if you are, think about how Airbnb, VRBO, how these places took off. It's easy, it's convenient. You've got your own personal space. The technology is simple to communicate with your host. Amazon, obviously massive. Things like Netflix, these companies that took off because they made it easy for their consumer to purchase and to digest the material or the product. And in insurance, I don't know if you guys have shopped insurance recently. I actually shopped for my own personal insurance 6 months ago, been a farmer's client, for 10 years, finally decided I'm going to shop. And I was just, the agents were so nice, but I was embarrassed for them. It was so difficult just to give them my information, you guys. And I had it all like saved on my computer, send it over, email. I mean, I was probably the easiest client. I knew exactly what I wanted. But it was still rigid and difficult and took forever. And they didn't have, I was looking at websites in my area. And now, granted, I'm in Idaho. I feel like we're 10 years behind the rest of the country. But at the same time, the websites were old, like they were built in the 80s. Like they were older than I was, and all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is rough. This is difficult. So, you can say, I'm making a couple $100,000 a year. I'm comfortable, all this stuff. But your customer is going to continue to demand an easier experience because the big guys are providing that.
That's why it drives people directly to Geico and Progressive Direct and the State Farms of the world. They can make it so easy. And granted, a lot of the people,
I can go to my computer at 10 o'clock at night and submit all the information that they need to quote instead of spending an hour and a half on the phone with you, asking me 5 questions, calling me back, asking me again, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
You got to make it easy.
And to some degree, so like with this Airbnb, like we've all of the stuff we need for the house, I'm just ordering on Amazon. And the reason I'm ordering on Amazon is not because it's the cheapest, it's because it's the easiest. And I don't think insurance should ever be bought the way that I'm buying air filters on Amazon, but that doesn't mean we can't take bits and pieces from that to make our business more streamlined. And I think that it's really easy. Oh, I'm making a couple $100,000 a year. I don't need to worry about, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's a slippery slope. It's a very, very, very slippery slope. So
Yeah, I always pick on Blockbuster. I'm sure they thought the same thing at some point, right?
I have a Blockbuster sign in my office to remind everybody, like, they were once the biggest in their field and they thought they were the baddest, and now they're gone. You know, there's
And
one
that's the
left.
detriment of any business owner, to think that you can cruise, right? You can cruise in
Yeah.
the world that we live in today, in where it's moving. I mean, you guys, 5 years ago, I never ever would have guessed we'd been talking about AI today.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't have been on my radar. Like, and to the extent of what it can do today, it is crazy stuff. So not that you have to be, the tech leader, or you have to be on the cutting edge of everything, but you can't be 10 years behind either.
Right.
At least be keeping up a little bit. And, some of these large agencies we're working with, we're talking to more and more enterprise level agencies, and, they're employing a CTO, a chief technology officer.
Right.
It's part of the business. They need to have an operations officer, someone doing, obviously financials, and they have someone who has an eye on technology. Doesn't mean that they're changing their systems every single day. See, agents get a lot of that as well. Shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
Signing up for way too many pieces of technology that they're never going to have the time to spend to actually implement. But at least keeping an eye on it and trying to stay a little bit updated, listening, demoing. Demo one system a week. Takes you 30 minutes. Take a look at it, sit on it, sleep on it, talk to your staff. At least know what's out there.
So what's I've got a question. We're gonna lead into some of the stuff that you guys do at Accelerate Automation these last few minutes. What's the biggest mistake you think agency owners make when they're looking to hire a company to handle their automations for them?
Biggest mistake.
Or what's something you see a lot that it's like, man, they really screwed up?
So most business owners that we talk to, most agency owners, haven't really hired consultants in the past at all, ever. Whether it be around technology, business coaches, really any consultant, HR. And so not really understanding how much they would need to be involved is something that they should be doing a better job of. So if you are talking to a company, understand what involvement you're going to have, and making sure that you have the capacity for that, or you have someone on your team who has the capacity for that. You're not ever going to hire a consultant who you're going to be handing everything to and you will have to do nothing. It's still your business. You're going to have to be involved. And I think that's a common misconception. Well, I hired this company, so they're going to take care of everything. If you hire a company that's going to take care of everything, the average insurance agent is not going to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
Let's just say, for that level of service, everyone has to have the things they do and the things that they do not do. So making sure you're asking good questions. Also make sure that the consultant really understands your pain points and what you're trying to achieve. What are actually the issues? And that takes a little bit of honesty. We launched a new service in January, and we have 19 agencies on it, and they range in specialty, they range in size, staffing, everything, systems. And what we discovered very quickly is that we needed to really understand the dynamic of the agency and the staff and the leadership to be able to actually implement change. So understanding, what is this consultant going to do? Where are you actually at in your agency? Is there some foundational work that needs to be done prior to jumping into some projects? I lost a staff member over implementing a CRM and automation in my agency. She was committed to paper, was not going to change her mind, did everything I could to show her how this was making her job easier, how it was the right thing for the client, how she's gonna be able to hit her goals better. Just refused to use the systems. And so I let her go. So a lot of times we see team members, and really the dynamic in the agency makes it very difficult for people to bring in a consultant.
I'll tell you a mistake I see, and a similar question is what mistakes people make about automation in general. I think and this is not me trying to pump up you guys, although I want to, but agency owners trying to become automation experts who are not. We do one of my presentations I give is how to basically outsource yourself in your agency, how to, take stuff off your plate as the agency owner. And one of the things I show is is a 4-part matrix. And it's like things you're good at and things you like doing, things you're not good at and things you don't like doing, things you like doing but you're not good at, and things that you don't like doing but are good at. And usually automation falls under things they like doing but aren't good at. And it's a hard one to, everybody has become automation experts in the last 3 years. And I don't think the effective use of your time as a business owner is building automations or playing around with Zapier.
I would agree.
Whether you hire a company like Mariah's or you delegate it to an employee who is really good at it, you need to do one of those two things. And you'd be dangerous in that. I think it's good that they know how to do a little bit of it in case there's like a Sunday and something goes wrong and they can go in there and fix it, right? But that's what I realized about myself is I'm like, man, like I like doing this, but I'm really not that good at it.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I started in automation, when I started using it for my agency, it took me a year.
Yeah.
Like I stopped selling policies. I stopped talking to clients. I just was coaching my team and building my system, and the trial and error over a year, sending a lot of the wrong things to the wrong people. But it was something that I wasn't good at yet.
Mm-hmm.
Loved doing it. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. Very, very, everyone has a different path there, but I was in an agency for a week down in California, big agency, farmers, but a huge outside book, actually bigger than his farmer's book. And this agent, man, he is like the networking master. Everybody knows him. I was in the agency for a week. The phones ring off the hook. People just wanting to buy insurance from them because of the agency owner. And he was trying to spend time in his systems and in his operations and creating operations pieces. And his staff told me, when we bring this item, I'm not going to use the name obviously, but when we bring this thing to the agency owner and he says, I'll handle it. It's like, they said it's a black hole. Never happens. Right.
Yeah.
Because he's so people driven, and being able to convince him to take one of his team members who was very operations minded and make her the operations manager was absolutely huge for him. Getting her to be the operations manager. Delegation is so hard when you're the founder because you did everything in the beginning, right? You had to.
Yeah.
So once you have to start trusting other people to do it, but that's where business owners, like the shackles come off and the success comes in, and you got to trust people. And you could ask my husband, my ruggedly handsome husband, who, if this is true, but I am a type A control freak. I want to control all of it.
Surprise.
As soon as I started letting go, it got better. Everything got better.
Yeah.
Hey, I hate to break up Love Island over here between the two tech-facing 37-year-old millennials, but allow me to just speak on behalf of all the independent insurance agents out here who are not, that are 50 and above like I am. Two problems I see with technology that I don't know how you fix. Number one, all these insurance agents and agency owners who want to create all of these automations, whether done by Mariah or done by one of a host of other people in or out of their agency. And what they really want to do is create pipelines, sales pipeline automations that are solely 100% what I call passive. In other words, nobody ever picks up the phone, calls anybody. You put in 1,000 leads or 100 leads and everything's done through automation. And I still say and will continue to believe that if you want to increase your quote to bind ratio vis-a-vis these lead automations for sales, your percentage is going to go up if you know what you're doing and you're confident. If somewhere in that automation pipeline, as it moves from stage to stage, somebody goes from, okay, instead of doing this passively in this next stage, Scott's going to pick the phone up and actually call somebody and say, hey, I want to write your insurance. I think too many agents try to use sales automations
100%.
so passively. And remember, guys, all this shit y'all are doing is passive. whether it's an email, a text message, a postcard, whatever, at some point, you either got to go visit that business or pick up the phone and call Miss Johnson and say, hey, Miss Johnson, this is Scott Howell with iProtect Insurance. I want to write your insurance. That's number one. Number two, another problem I see with technology, and maybe through artificial intelligence in the next few years, this will be solved. But you just take my house. I'm one person, Scott Howell. I just happen to be in the insurance industry. If I sat here and told you the quagmire of who owns what vehicle, but where that vehicle is garaged, and who's on the bank loan versus who drives the vehicle, I would throw you into such mental gymnastics that your ass would be thinking about that before you went to bed tonight. Now, I don't know, maybe you two, obviously a lot smarter than I am, but there's still that human element that sometimes you got to get on the phone and go, wait a minute, who owns this house? And okay, and your ex-wife, but you live there, but your kids, okay, and it's in a trust, but that trust, okay. You see where I'm going with that?
I think people need to think about automations not in the sense. I think a lot of agents do think, oh, this automation can replace
100%.
all of
Wow,
No,
so I don't have to call anybody anymore.
What you need to do is look at your producers or your account managers day to day and think, what are they doing that we can automate? That way they can have more time with the customers. Like we have automations in our system that remind the producer to call the person, right?
Oh yeah.
And like we had a carrier we met with that was very hesitant on technology. Sent us a letter that said, because we use so much technology, they're not appointing us, right? And I told the rep, I said, look, I know you think that our technology replaces the human element, but it actually enhances it because I'm not having to worry about my people doing X, Y, Z because we have it automated. Therefore, they can spend more time helping the customers. And I think you're spot on, Scott. But I think there are too many people that think, oh, we can implement Zapier and Agency Zoom and artificial AI and artificial intelligence, and we don't ever have to talk to anybody again. And you could probably try that, but it's not going to work great. So Mariah, yeah, go ahead.
I completely agree with you guys. Like this is not, nobody is saying to remove, well, I don't know if any other people are. I'm not saying this.
Yeah.
The automation that we build, the idea is this is the process that you should go through. And this is the people that you should prioritize contacting. If you're sending an automated email or an automated text and you get a reply, pick up the phone.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is what you're supposed to do. If you get the automated reply and email back 15 times, you're getting smacked upside the head, or you should be, because the whole point is to know who should I talk to, who is engaged, who is responding. You got to pick up the damn phone.
Right.
We have an agent who, when we started working with their office on all their operations and processes, he said, I implemented SALT in my agency. Love SALT, forms, pulls in information, helps add value, helps educate the consumer along the way as they provide information to you. He said, I implemented it. My team loves it. Here's what they do. Hi, Mr. Customer. Oh, you need an insurance quote? Great. I'm going to email you a link. Fill it out. And when you do, I'll get your quote ready. Bye. Click. And they hang up the phone. And he said, my volume's down. We're not closing any business. Everything's getting worse. And I said, well, of course, because you took a platform that is designed to help you gather information and you let it become the excuse as to why you don't talk to people on the phone.
Yeah.
So you have to manage your people through this. Talking to people, when I was in banking, my manager or my sales manager, she used to call it cheeks in the seat. You can't sell banking products unless you have cheeks in the seat because you need signatures and we couldn't do it over the phone. You have to talk to people. You cannot automate away that part, and you shouldn't at all.
Yeah. And to your point, I think some of that may be going on in my agency where we've developed an online, link to like a quoting link. And I guarantee you, I've got people that are like, oh yeah, you need an insurance quote? Here, I'm just going to text you this link. You fill it out and send it back to me. Thanks, bye.
Hey, I'll tell you.
Zero rapport built, zero Zero of now all we are is Geico, but we're just white labeled as iProtect.
I don't like putting the ball in the customer's court. You know, we were using InsureGrid for a while. Love the folks at InsureGrid. You know, Canopy Connect's another one. I'm not a fan of those tools, just to be honest. I know that there's people out there that swear by them and use them, but to me, I don't like that it's putting the ball in the customer's court to send me information. And okay, here you go, and we're just waiting, and they could never fill that out, and we don't know what happened. Like, no, you need to control as much of the process as you possibly control. And I'll give you an example that you made me think of. So we have this rule in our office that if there's something going wrong with a policy, let's say it's about to cancel because they hadn't paid it, or there's an inspection issue there, and something's happened and this policy is going to cancel. Our rule is text, email, call. And until you get a response, if we text them, we don't get a response, email, call. So what we did recently is we created a pipeline in Agency Zoom for these situations, and we noticed that not everybody was following that rule. You know, they would call, but then they wouldn't email or text, or they would email, but they wouldn't text or call, right? And people communicate differently. Now, most people, their preferred form of communication is one of those three ways. So what we did is we created this pipeline. So when that lead or that account goes into that pipeline, it automatically texts and emails for them. So now all they have to do is call. So we've simplified it for them where they don't have to take the effort into those other two things. And now you have to do a call, and it makes it really easy for us because now we can say, okay, Sally didn't call this person. It makes it really clear versus digging through three forms of communication. So Mariah, for those listening, I know we went over and our next guest is about to come on. If somebody wants to work with you guys, how do they find you? How do they reach out? All that good stuff.
AcceleratedAutomation.net. We're also on all the social media platforms. You can find us around, but that's our website. We do work with Agency Zoom users currently, and we'll be soon working with Momentum users, and then also work with agents across their entire technology and operations platforms through our fractional CO service, which currently has a wait list. But I agree with you guys. I just have to say my policy in my agency was double dial, text, email, phone calls first.
Yeah.
Automation, it's all about meeting people where they're at. If you're on the phone and you're filling out information, this is what I experienced as an agent. True story, many times, because I was a young mother. So I happened to attract a lot of young mothers as clients. I'm gathering information. I got to go. My kid is screaming.
Yeah.
Can you call me back? Can I get the rest of this later? This is a great place for Salt or Canopy or InsureGrid or whatever. Let me text you this and then fill it out when you have a minute, and I'll call you back when it's done. Great. I cannot tell you how many form submissions I have seen in agencies or Canopies or InsureGrid submissions 10 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. They let your clients have the way to communicate with you and work with you. But then on Monday morning, you are prioritizing that phone call and you are calling them right away, confirming, building relationships, and selling insurance. That is how you implement technology without removing human element.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Mariah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to shut this thing down. Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. And as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Go out into the big bad world, develop relationships, pick up the phone and call somebody today. Tell them you want to write their insurance business and just see what they have to say about it. But write good business for the agencies that you represent and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Mariah.
Thank you, Mariah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.